Oh, welcome Wednesday to you all. Minutes after 6 bells, you have joined Living the Run here on ESPN 1280 The Ticket. Join us each and every week, 6 o'clock to 7 on Wednesday evenings, where we'll talk everything health and fitness. And the reality is, on this show, we won't play any games. We're not gonna get stuck into this healthcare system, Obamacare system. Reality right off the bat, this is a sick care system. People getting sicker in this country. They want a different alternative. We're here to bring it to them. We're here to motivate. Rex Stevens in studio, Olympian Paul Tarek, already looking hot right off the bat here. But we got to introduce a third guest in studio joining us on Living the Run for the first time, maybe even on the payroll, Paul. I haven't told her yet.
I'm not even on the payroll yet. Wait.
There's nothing in the bank account. But anyway, pole vaulter, former University of Oregon alum, Melissa Gergel. Melissa, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
How do I get on this payroll thing? I want some of this.
We're all trying to figure it out. Hey, let's just get after it again. This is Health and Fitness Radio. We got great guests. Tonight's guest, unbelievable. TED.com. You guys that are into TED Talks, Melissa, you're into TED Talks. You and I both, it kind of becomes obsessive if you start listening to enough of these things. We got one tonight. Ben Saunders on from the UK, going to be the first guy ever to walk from the coast of Antarctica to the South Pole and back out unassisted. This guy's incredible. Check out his TED Talk on TED.com called Why Bother Leaving the House. This is what it's all about, people. It's putting one step forward, one step in front of the other, taking actions for our lifestyle and making change, not relying on Obamacare, healthcare, or what's the reality, a sick care system.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. When you talk about Obamacare, a lot of people, I don't want to get into Obamacare or not, or healthcare. Those are reactive solutions to problems, right? And that's not what we're about. We don't want people to, live their life and then get sick and then go, oh, well, what should we be doing now? We want people to be proactive. We want them to take this lifestyle change, you put it into effect for themselves, start changing small things about their lives so that when they're, maybe they do it when they're 20 or when they're 30, that 10 years from now or 15 years from now, they're not obese. They're not out of shape. They're not, just living life to basically stand up and then get tired of standing so they can just sit down.
Yeah, no question. Virginia Merrim from Vert Foods will join us in a little while. We talk food all the time. And, I was talking to a patient earlier, and she's struggling big time with, as she looks around at the food choices, she feels like everything is grain-induced, carbohydrate-induced, things that will kind of spike those blood sugars, etc. Virginia will come on again. We'll talk fermented foods a little bit, some of those choices. But the reality is, step back. You start using vegetables first, then fruits as your carbohydrate. You will stop craving some of the nonsense processed stuff out there, and you'll be able to make some of those changes and preventative things like you said, Paul.
Well, yeah, I think she's, kind of running into what a lot of people run into. You go to the grocery store, and you really have to be selective. You have to go with somebody. I think you have to go with somebody almost the first time, and they can kind of teach you how to shop. Because when I would go to the grocery store, and I still do it, everything you buy that's in a package is full of processed food or full of grain or full of preservatives. So you have to go with somebody that can show you where to shop and then what to shop for when you're there.
Yeah, hey, so we got to bring Melissa in on this talk because another Midwesterner, Paul. The Midwest is not generally known for the best in health behaviors. And, this is why they come out to the Central Coast, I think, is because they're kind of seeing this, hey, we want to mimic those folks on the Central Coast. They got it together. Happiest place in America, San Luis Obispo. And I think those Midwesterners are a little jealous. Melissa, talk about health behaviors in the Midwest versus the Central Coast. Superior here on the Central Coast?
I think that everybody here just seems to be a lot more active, and I don't know if that's just because there's way more to do here in terms of outdoor activities, but I think that that's the biggest difference that I notice. So yeah, it seems like they're a little bit ahead of the Midwest around here, but
I don't know. I think Michigan would always get out there, on a Friday night. Maybe we won't go for a jog, but we'll go bowling and drink beer. I mean, that's got to count for something.
Well, how about Melissa as an athlete? You think about athletics, and a lot of times, we've talked about this before, Paul, because we're getting after the youth a little bit too. We're seeing this prevalence of conditions in youth now. Things that were once adult onset diseases have now been inflicting our youth. They're continuing to come down in age. We can sometimes feel like we get away with it, when we're in junior high and high school because we're playing sports and going forward. What we don't realize is that it's maybe not helping us productively for you maybe out on the track in other athletics. What have you noticed yourself as you're adapting, going from high school, solid athlete, recruited to the collegiate level, and now getting towards that pro level, the conversions you've had to make in a nutrition realm and the things you've learned along the way?
Absolutely. So I actually just read a blog post by the McMillan group, and it was Aries Merritt, who's an amazing hurdler, and his coach, just talking about nutrition and all the things that really made a difference from his transition into being an elite athlete. And I think he said it really well, just that's kind of the last thing that you go to. I don't know why, but you'll work on everything before you finally make that change in your diet. And he said, it's really just about starting to eat for performance instead of eating for taste, which is kind of sad, but...
Well, and this is such an interesting thing. We need to kind of do this compare and contrast, because I don't know if it's a Midwest thing here or what, but I met Paul early on. Here it is, this Olympic Adonis, decathlete. And I go to his house, and there it is, Fruity Pebbles, Fruit
They were Fruit
Loops.
Loops, yeah.
Fruit Loops.
Yeah. Fruity Pebbles leave that waxy taste in your mouth, Rex. Don't you know better?
It was his idea of eating the rainbow that's so often talked about. He covered the rainbow with that bowl, but I was kind of dumbfounded, to see that. I think we all have to admit, though, that we all have little things that are hard for us to give up. What's the hardest thing to give up, that maybe you grew up with, and it was just whatever it did, comfort food, if you will, that kind of came along?
I think that's kind of changed throughout my career at Oregon from when I was in high school. My mom never baked. She wasn't a big baker. So I never grew up having tons of dessert. I would have rather sat down and had a bag of chips than a piece of cake. But in college...
Me too, no question. Something like a good kettle chip, little salt on it. Much better than, the Hostess cupcake, for
You're
me.
crazy.
But then I went to college, and I roomed with a bunch of girls who had huge sweet tooths, and they kind of converted me. So I would have to say that the biggest thing that I've had the most trouble giving up would probably be chocolate chip cookies.
That's not a bad thing. Chocolate's good. Chocolate's not bad.
I mean,
right?
dark chocolate's practically a health food.
Yeah, it might as well be.
Practically a health
Part
food.
of the pyramid, Rex.
I'm telling you, if you just mix it with a good glass of wine, then you're healthy, right? Antioxidants.
Iron.
Iron. These are the scams that are out there that we're trying to continue to kind of unravel and veil. I mean, alcohol is one of the bigger ones for me, and we kind of talked about it last week. We thought maybe you got a little loopy there off that fermented drink that Virginia brought in. Paul got silly pretty quick off of that sage, honey, ginger fermented.
I still laugh thinking about a mule kicking a guy in the face. I don't know why.
Oh, good stuff. Well, guys, we got to at least touch on it here real quick. And, on Living the Run, one of the things that we continue to do, we talked to sports psychologist Jeff Troche way back. We continue to try to get people to motivate us as well, looking at kind of that mental side of stress as well as just the physical and nutritional. 9/11 brought out a lot of fears for folks, brought out a lot of scared, a little timidity, a little tightness, a little tenseness that kind of came with it. But the reality was there was a flip side to that too. And one of the things I do, every Martin Luther King Day, I always listen to I Made It to the Mountaintop, or I that speech that he's got to the mountaintop is just one of those ones. It's just, kind of gives you those chills about what that guy was doing. But the same thing goes here. There's a video called Boat Lift. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Tom Hanks did it. And it's, again, that idea of those guys that looked at Manhattan and saw all those folks come to the edge and realized they were stuck. They started to kind of scamper and get away from all the debris and what was going on, and they found themselves stuck along the edge, and there was just a waterfront. And guys looking from across the way said, I got to start to take my boat over there and start picking up people. They got so many people to bring boats, and if you look at the overhead, you see all these boats coming to rescue these people. They moved 500,000 people in 9 hours. It's the greatest movement of mankind we've ever seen. And it was just people, and they kind of start this thing with a quote, "A hero is one who does what he can." And that's all we're asking here on Living the Run is this idea of do what you can. Don't walk around in a life with shouldas, wouldas, and couldas. I wish I had. But get yourself moving, get yourself doing something, and if it innately feels right in your gut, go for it. I think we'll see a lot of changes along the way.
Well, I think that goes to, we talked a couple weeks ago about a buddy of mine had a great statement, and it kind of put everything in perspective is, act your way into a feeling, don't feel your way into an action. You can sit there the whole time saying, as soon as I feel like going out and getting that run in, I'm going to get it in. Or as soon as I feel like, whether it's a chore around the house or a workout you need to do, his perspective is act your way into that. Just do it. Don't say, well, as soon as I feel like it, just go do it. And you'll be surprised at how quickly you feel like doing it. You get 2 or 3 workouts in, and then all of a sudden, you're not getting it in one day, and you're motivated to kind of stop what you're doing, reprioritize, and say, I got to get this in.
Yeah, no question. I think, when I think about Martin Luther King's I've been to the mountaintop, it's the same thing here. We've got peaks all over the place. And when you get to the top to take a walk and you just get there, no matter how long it takes you, you don't have to be in a race. You start to view the beauty of what's around you, and you start to go, I kind of like to do this again. This seemed like a good idea to spend the time to take that one step forward and to continue to go. And whether we're looking at it psychologically, nutritionally, or physically, these are great steps in the right direction. And it's an encouraging deal. I posted it for you. You can check us out on Facebook.com/LivingTheRun. Boat lift. Spend 6-7 minutes watching that. You'll be inspired. Your heart will be warmed. Good stuff.
Yeah, you can return to the YouTube videos of people falling down after that, but probably an inspirational video.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, Ben Saunders in just a little bit. This is the first time we've done this, Paul, so I got a little bit of anxiety here coming in because we're supposed to, after the break, bring in this kind of pre-recorded thing. Never done a pre-recorded thing before, so we're going to try to make that work. But first impressions, when you watch that, and did I send it to you too, didn't I, Melissa? Ben Saunders, Why Leave the House? The Polar Explorer. Did I send that one to you?
No, you didn't.
I got to send that one to you. You got to watch that. But the first impressions from this guy and what you got on what he's trying to do and what he's trying to accomplish.
Oh, me? Oh, the English accent gets it for me. No matter what he says, I will listen to the guy with the English accent. That's what it boils down to. No, just the way he talked, the first impression that I got from it was a guy that doesn't have to have like a motivational kind of speech in the morning. He doesn't get lost in life and then, try to find his way. This is a guy that is antsy to get out and to do things and to discover things and to do things that other people don't do. And when he talks about, like when he trekked across, the geographic North Pole and how he did that and what he saw, it doesn't sound like a guy that at any time said, yeah, it's pretty far. Maybe I shouldn't have gone this far. This sounds like a guy that was really just kind of waiting to see what was just beyond the next horizon.
Yeah, we talk about that sometimes, that idea of getting up in the morning and doing things. And we never, ever find anyone that says, hey, I got up in the morning, I exercised, or I got up in the morning, spent a little bit more time to make a good breakfast. I wish I hadn't. Nobody does. Nobody at 1 or 2 o'clock goes, I wish I hadn't done that. And he was just like that. It was a good thing. Speaking of Polar Explorers, we talked the Midwest. He could have just gone to the Midwest, right? He could have Polar Explored.
He could have been to the Windy City, Chicago in December. How did that's something I got to ask? Is you went from Melissa, you went from Chicago to Oregon, and that had to be a treat. It's like, well, great summers. I'm trading snow for rain, but not too bad. And then you trade Oregon for the Central Coast. Have you not arrived, or have you not arrived?
I feel like from a weather perspective, this was definitely an upgrade. So that obviously made it a little bit easier to make that transition.
Yeah, it is pretty opposite. You're kind of bouncing around. Pretty cold, pretty icy. Then you go to pretty rainy, pretty cloudy. A little dreary up there in Eugene. It's when it's beautiful, but when it's dreary, it's dreary.
Yeah, it gets pretty old around February.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
February, it's like late April. I'm like, man, is the sun ever going to come out?
Hey, we're going to bring in Virginia Merrim right now. And, Virginia, kind of interesting, that our guest, Ben Saunders, is going to be about to be on in just a minute from the UK. I'm going to tackle this kind of big deal in Antarctica, walking from the coast of Antarctica out to the South Pole. He talked about, Paul, and we'll listen to it here in just a minute, about gaining a little weight along the way, needing to do that. And I thought it was a little ironic because last week you talked a little bit about fermented foods, Virginia, and we're going to talk about it again. And a great study just came out of Denmark talking about overweight people or obese people and this gut dysbiosis that they have, if you will, or basically bacterial populations that are completely out of whack. And all they did for these folks was just get them on probiotics and got them to immediately start to lose weight just by, well, what happens? They start to nutrient absorb a little bit better, get rid of waste a little bit better, and their metabolism turns on, and they just automatically start to lose weight. So this is kind of a continued great topic. What do you have for us today? Continue to kind of go along this line. We want to talk fermented foods.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to stay on the subject of fermented foods because I got such a large amount of questions and emails, and people were just barraging me after last week's show talking about, well, what does it mean? Can I just go buy a probiotic? Or what, I thought probiotic was a bacteria and bacteria is bad. There was just these very interesting questions that stemmed from our show last week. And, one of the things I really wanted to remind people is that the origins of fermented foods or cultured foods is one of the oldest. They track it back to somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 years old. So making foods into a healthy probiotic substance is something that's been going on for a very long time. So it's not that you have to go buy probiotics. It's you can do it yourself and very easily. So tonight I actually gave you 3 items. I gave you a fermented jalapeno salsa. I gave you a sauerkraut, and I gave you a raw kale salad that has been fermented. And I chose these 3 things. They have very different palate taste, and it kind of shows you the wide range, in addition to the soda we had last week, of how different and pleasing fermented foods can be. So I don't know if you got a chance to try any. I do recommend that with the jalapenos, you put on a little slice of avocado, just in case you're not a spicy person. It does have a kick. The difference in that jalapeno is literally it has been chopped up and sealed in a jar with sea salt for 2 weeks. It is a raw jalapeno that has been broken down through the probiotic culturing process, and it is packed probably 10 billion particles of probiotics in that jalapeno salsa. Tastes just like the salsa you're used to, but it's filled with probiotics. And so instead of it being heated or added vinegar to it, you're just eating it in its cultured form, which is how salsa was originally made. So very simple process, doesn't require much effort on your part other than a place to store it. Great on eggs. You need about a teaspoon a day, and so it's just a great flavoring. You can put it into, other sauces and just add on to it. The raw kale salad is one of those popular ones that I make that everyone gets very much into. We started doing this because we saw a lot of people just chowing on kale all the time, and kale's the new miracle food, and kale this and kale that. The people were having some pretty intense symptoms from eating raw kale. They were getting gallbladder spasms, indigestion, because they weren't eating kale in the way it was meant to be eaten, which a lot of times is that it needs to be pre-digested in order to absorb those minerals, just what you were talking about in terms of weight loss. Prevents the bloat, helps you lose more fat. And then the last one is the sauerkraut, which is just, I tell people, if anything, get a batch of sauerkraut going and have a tablespoon a day. It's what we used to always have served with hot dogs, on sandwiches. It helps with digestion, and it also helps with fat loss. Because, again, your metabolism increases and you absorb the minerals that are in the rest of your food, and you also prevent other bacteria like E. coli, which is one of the biggest indicators of bloat and excess fat around the belly in the United States.
Hey, good stuff. Where can people learn how to do this type of thing? I know you're teaching classes all the time.
I am teaching classes, but I'm also offering another thing for people because there's been such interest. I will just come to people's homes and do in-home classes. So we are now starting where I'll teach the probiotic sodas and the sourdough making and some of the fermented foods within your own house so that we can look at your area and see where the best place to start your cultures is, check the temperature in your house, and to make sure that you have the availability and the space to do this properly.
Hey, awesome stuff. Check her out at vertfoods.com. Virginia, as always, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much.
All right, enjoy. Bye.
Hey, wanted to touch base. Hey, new sponsor, Paul Tarek on the show, Left Lane Sports. Have you been to their website yet? Got to go to these guys' website. When it comes to favorite brands, check these guys out. Don't get stuck paying full retail. These guys offer incredible deals. Whether you run, swim, hike, climb, or surf, leftlanesports.com has got you covered. Left Lane Sports has over 600 top-tier endurance, outdoor, and action sports brands to choose from. Save 50 to 70% off retail every day on brands like Under Armour, Asics, New Balance, Adidas, Timex, Hurley, Billabong, Patagonia, and more. Visit leftlanesports.com and sign up for a free membership, giving you exclusive access to your favorite brands and products. Plus, save on shipping by picking up your order at Left Lane Sports headquarters in San Luis. These guys put these things up, and they're oftentimes these deals are up for like a week. You know, a short period of time, you can get smoke and blowout deals on top products, 50, 60, 70. I saw 80% off. Incredible guys. Great to have them on the show. Anything active, anything you want, you can get with these guys at Left Lane Sports.
That could be detrimental for me, Rex. I've been trying to reduce the things I bring home, but if I see deals like 80% off, it's like, well, I got to get that because it's a deal. I have to have that.
Check them out at leftlanesports.com. Folks, Polar Explorer, motivational speaker, TED.com. He's got over 1 million hits on that. Ben Saunders, next on this show.
You're listening to Living the Run on ESPN Radio 1280 The Ticket.
Hey guys, Paul Tarek from Living the Run here. As a former Olympian, there is only one place myself and fellow athletes go when it comes to chiropractic care on the Central Coast. With 4 chiropractors in the clinic, Slow Wellness Center is the largest, most comprehensive group of docs in San Luis Obispo County. I began seeing Dr. Rex Stevens back in 2005 for spinal adjustments to help maximize my performance, minimize my injury, and allow me to compete at my best. When the difference between a win and a loss can be just a fraction of an inch, perfect alignment in all joints is essential. One of the great things about the team at Slow Wellness is no matter where I had an issue, whether it was my spine, my foot, knee, wrist, or shoulder, they were always able to help. This team, made up of Dr. Rex and Molly Stevens, Dr. Sachs, and Dr. Bandolo, is sure to help you reach your health and fitness goals too. If it's chiropractic care you need, go where I go, Slow Wellness Center. Check them out at slowwellness.com or call 543-8688.
Folks, when it comes to the health of my teeth, I will not compromise, and neither should you. It's time you go where my wife and I go see Dr. Ryan Ross. I get it. Not everyone loves a dentist, and heck, even a few of you out there are scared to death of these offices. Bad past experiences? Well, you ever had a bad haircut? How about a bad meal somewhere? You didn't stop getting your haircut, and you certainly didn't stop eating, so stop ignoring your teeth. Dr. Ross's gentle approach, calming demeanor, and office full of upbeat staff puts your dental fears to rest. Conveniently located in a great little house on Marsh Street downtown, Dr. Ross's office exudes the highest level of professionalism, mixed with an atmosphere much like your own home. Look, nobody's in a rush here. It's not a get 'em in, get 'em out atmosphere. Every time I'm in Dr. Ross's office, it's like I'm the only guy that matters. No distractions, just full focus on my oral health. If you're interested in the highest quality in dental care and want to walk out of the office every time with a smile, call Dr. Ryan Ross today, 541-5800.
Puma Aquatics team offers year-round swim programming for novice, recreational, and competitive swimmers. For 16 years, Puma has developed some of the fastest swimmers on the Central Coast, as well as the nation. Puma has 3 convenient locations to choose from, providing programming for all of San Luis Obispo County. Puma offers swim assessments for new swimmers on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the SLO Kennedy Club, Atascadero Kennedy Club, and Arroyo Grande High School. For more information about Puma Aquatics, check out pumaswim.org. Join the Puma Pride and challenge yourself to reach new levels in your swimming. Puma Aquatics, where pride, passion, and persistence pay off.
We're back with Living the Run.
All right, Rex Stevens in with Olympian Paul Tarek. Paul, I tell you what, this is as exciting as it gets here on Living the Run Radio. I tell you, this guy that we've got now as a guest coming out of the UK, introduced often as a polar explorer, youngest to ski solo in the North Pole, 2004. He was carrying a measly 400 pounds or 180 kilos.
Yeah, 180 kilograms.
You know the kilo thing. Motivational speaker, endurance athlete. Currently preparing to lead a 2-man team to Antarctica, setting out just this October. Got just a little less than 5 weeks away, making the first return to journey to the South Pole on foot. 1,800 miles, 4 months. This will be the longest unsupported polar journey in history and the first completion of Captain Scott's ill-fated Terra Nova expedition. Hey, Ben, I got to ask you, looking at this, after all of that in the intro, how would you introduce yourself?
Well, I normally say drags heavy things around cold places.
that was my favorite quote of the thing. In the video.
I still struggle for a job title actually, but yeah, you've got it on. That was a good intro.
Well, it's kind of funny though, because you talked about it never really being an option when you were in school. They never really steered you towards that career. So I mean, you may be inventing a job title all on your own.
I basically have, yeah. I'm still, in some ways, still pinching myself that I'm here, making a living from something I dreamt of doing as a kid, as a teenager. So yeah, I'm pretty lucky in many ways.
Hey, look, we can follow you guys along on the scottexpedition.com or at bensaunders.com or on YouTube, right? You guys are posting videos as we go, and you'll be posting along the way. I find it a bit ironic, and I'm sure as do you, that the Scott Expedition way back, obviously these guys weren't using the technology that we have. You'll even be tweeting along this deal to the South Pole, huh?
Yeah, it's changed a bit. Of course, when Captain Scott was down there 101 years ago, they sailed away for more than 3 years at a time, and we had no communication back home at all, no real safety net. And it took months for the news of Scott's death to travel back to the UK. We're going to be telling the story in real time as it unfolds. So live via satellite phone every evening from the tent. We're sending back images, sending back blog posts and texts, and hopefully once a week sending back video for YouTube, which is a world first. No one's ever sent back high quality video from Antarctica before. So that's something we're really looking forward to doing.
Now, I thought that was kind of ironic, going back to the video, you talk early in the video about, people needing to get outside. We have all this virtual media and virtual world available at our fingertips. We can live vicariously through other people. So do we ever really need to get outside? But then, during your expedition, you're going to be on YouTube and tweeting and updating people. So.
I've definitely had I've had a sort of existential struggle with if Scott were alive today, or Shackleton, would they be tweeting? I think they probably would actually. They were I think their expeditions that were about discovery. They were first and foremost they were storytellers. They both came back from trips to do long lecture tours. They both wrote books. They both published photographs, and there were paintings and artwork published from expeditions. So in some ways things have changed enormously. In other ways things haven't changed much at all. It's just the medium.
You say it so eloquently. You said it. You experience, engage, and endeavor versus watch and wonder. Certainly, we're okay with this watching and wondering. We'll let you take part in the South Pole thing. But hey, before for those that don't know you, Ben, take us through your initial successful journey skiing solo to the North Pole. Located, of course, that's in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Of course, versus the South Pole, where you're going to be on a continental landmass. Essentially equivalent of 31 marathons or 800 miles in 10 weeks. I love how you said it, a journey right on the brink of human capabilities. Take us through that journey.
I think that was the thing that really appealed. It was the North Pole, as you said, the geographic North Pole is slap bang in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. So if you are crazy enough to want to walk there, you have to walk over the frozen surface of the sea. So there are no maps. It's an environment that is in a constant state of flux, and it's one that, of course, is pretty challenging. The average temperature for the 10 weeks I was alone out there was minus 30 degrees centigrade. I think it's about the same in Fahrenheit. It's in the minus 30s average. The coldest days were below minus 50. Theoretically, wind chill of minus 60 or minus 70 on really bad days. So it's a challenging place to survive, let alone to cover any distance. And I covered it in a straight line just over 1,000 kilometers. It was the equivalent, we worked out, of 31 marathons back to back, as he said. And of course, I'm wearing a harness, dragging a sled, pulling all my food and my supplies and my survival gear. So it was as daft physical challenges go. It was way out there, and it was a journey that took a lot of obviously a lot of physical training preparation, but also a really complex project to organise and to plan, to fundraise for. It felt at many points like I was training for the Olympics and trying to build my own stadium at the same time. Just so much to juggle.
Hey, talk about that. Talk about some of the training regimen. I mean, No question, one of our favorite things here on Living the Run, here on ESPN Radio 1280 The Ticket, is talking endurance athletes. We see lots of ultra marathoners, ultra swimmers, and the like. How do you train for this? What is some of the physical regimen? Getting up early this morning, thinking about you. I went straight to my sardines as my first little meal there. What are you eating? What are you doing physically training to prepare for this endurance athleticism?
It's a really strange thing to prepare for, and particularly this long trip in Antarctica, because it's nearly 4 months. We'll be on the ice for 110 days. So it's in some ways it is a sort of ultra endurance challenge. In other ways, it is very much a test of strength. We are pulling 440 pounds each at the start of this next trip, so enormously heavy sleds at the very, very start. We're traveling up and down the Beardmore Glacier, which is one of the largest glaciers in the world. It's an enormous physical challenge, and we've had to prepare for it, combine endurance training, strength training, and then the third component is actually putting on weight. So I am right now in the middle of trying to put on fat, which is nowhere near as much fun as it sounds. Partly because I normally pride myself on my physical fitness, and now I'm suddenly having to put on. I'm trying in pounds. I've probably put on about 18 or 20 above my usual sort of training weight. So I've got a good belly coming on. There's a big pack of cookies on my desk. I'm doing everything that I don't normally do, just eating junk, just trying to, because of course the training volume has carried on, and I eat quite a lot anyway. So I've just had to just keep stuffing my face to try to put on this extra weight, and I've done it for a couple of big trips in the past, and it's nowhere near as enjoyable as it sounds.
Now you got to be careful though, because if you put on a little too much weight, you might look a little tastier to the local wildlife.
Well, yeah. Luckily, no bears in Antarctica, so they're only up north, so we haven't got that to worry about down there.
That was I remember hearing listening to you, and you were talking about what you were carrying, and you just happened to mention in a shotgun just in case I came across a polar bear, and I was like, I think of going out on a run, and thinking, all right, I got my iPod with me, I got a watch here, got some water. Oh, gotta get that shotgun just in case there's a polar.
That was one of the biggest worries, and also, of course, sleeping in a tent at night. I had a tripwire that I put around the tent with flares, explosive flares that would go off if a bear came along.
Well, and that was,
I didn't.
You were on your own there, though, right? There wasn't anybody.
Yes.
It wasn't like you had somebody that you didn't have to be faster than the bear, just faster than your traveling companion.
It was just me.
It was just you.
Hey, we're talking to Ben Saunders, Polar Explorer. They're getting ready for expedition in October to the South Pole. I tell you, follow them along, bensaunders.com or on scottexpedition.com. Follow along the Facebook, Twitter, also on YouTube. They'll be posting the videos, YouTube/Scott Expedition. Hey, I got to say this. I've heard of the Road to Nowhere before. Maybe it was a Dr. Seuss account. I don't know, but I've always been frustrated by machines where you don't go anywhere in a gym, a treadmill, a stationary bike, a rower. But talk about how much that ice is shifting. I think that the average listener doesn't really understand this. You talked about hiking for 7.5 hours and going backwards at one point.
Yeah, this is skiing solo to the North Pole in 2004. There were many days, because you're skiing over the frozen surface of the sea. It is literally a sort of floating crust of pack ice. And it's always moving. It's subject to the currents of the ocean, the tides near the coastline, and also the wind. And if the wind's strong enough and it's going in the wrong direction, then the ice can absolutely be blown south faster than I can travel north. And I think the lowest point on that trip, I covered, I think it was minus 2.5 miles, and I was in a day's worth of skiing north. I was 2.5 miles further south than when I started. So there were some very, very tough days. We won't have that in Antarctica, of course. It's a continent. It's not moving, but the scale of it and the length of the total journey is way bigger. So I'm sure it'll have plenty of challenges in store for us.
Yeah, no question. Talk about a couple of things in the past, both negative and positive. I know that you had an experience where things went awry for you and you didn't quite finish in initial expedition, but then also talk simply about that success of kind of an emotional moment where you talked about having the entire world literally beneath your feet when you hit that pinnacle at the North Pole.
Yeah, it was a strange thing. I mean, in some ways, it's sort of the ultimate anticlimax. It's not. It's certainly not like reaching the summit of a mountain where you know that you are there. You can't go any further. The North Pole is a sort of academic. There's nothing there to mark it because the ice is always moving. So even if someone had stuck a flag there to say they'd got the North Pole a year before, it would have drifted away. So there was nothing there. I just counted down the last few feet on the GPS, and it was a really weird mix of feelings because on the one hand I knew that there was nothing there, but I think I was still expecting something to look different or feel different. And,
a little workshop and some elves or something. I don't know.
There's nothing. There isn't even a pole at the North Pole. There's nothing there.
I mean, were there moments?
So, and of course, it had taken me years of work and 72 days of skiing, dragging a sled to get there, and so in some ways a real anticlimax, but in other ways it was a culmination of a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and the hardest journey of my entire life by a long way.
Well, I mean, you relied totally on, at that point, you were pretty much relying totally on, electronic navigation. Were there times during that trip, because it's not like you can go, we got a little bit off today, but, I see the mountain over here to the left. I'm just going to go a little there and get lined up again. Were there times that you started to doubt that, or times that, you were there 10 weeks, you drift off 5 degrees on the first day or something and take a wrong heading, who knows where you could be?
Yeah, it got very confusing at times because the ice is obviously constantly drifting and moving, and as well as north and south, it drifts east and west. It also, if you're on a big sheet of ice, I remember one day waking up in the morning, I could see my ski tracks from the evening before heading into my campsite. And when I worked out which way was north, it was 90 degrees compared to the, so I was heading off at a right angle to my tracks that evening because the ice had sort of rotated during the night. So it can be a really disconcerting place, the Arctic.
Maybe you should have just stayed put, and when it rotated around 90 degrees, you could have just made up a little ground there.
Hey, I want to ask you about this expedition coming up. Again, talking to Ben Saunders, polar explorer, motivational speaker, endurance athlete. You can find them on youtube.com/ScottExpedition, bensaunders.com, ScottExpedition.com. Follow these guys along. It's taken off in October. It's funny, I listen to you talk, and you get into that realm where we look at Antarctica. You guys describe it as the coldest, windiest, highest, driest, and most hostile continent on Earth. Yet you talk about it's been calling to you for many years. What about that? Is it the coldest, the windiest, the most? What is calling to you into that soul? And talk about this upcoming journey.
It doesn't sound a particularly tempting combination when you put it like that. I think it's a whole number of things. It's just an enormous challenge, just when it comes to sheer human endeavor. As a kind of athletic challenge, this is way out there, and that's a big part of the appeal. There's also the historical significance to it as well, which is enormous. It's got all those things to it, and Scott's story is an enormous. He's still a sort of household name in the UK. It's something we all learn about at school as kids.
Talk about that real quick for our listeners who don't know that story here in the U.S. It's a story of, I don't know. It's a hard one to listen to because you see almost competition there. 2 different groups trying to make it to the same endpoint. One not making it. Well, I think that the point on it is, for me, is how psychologically defeating it sounded like it must have been to Scott and his group.
Very much so. So this is 1911. They set out. So Captain Scott led a huge expedition. They actually sailed down to Antarctica the year before in a big wooden ship. He was expecting to really have the place to himself, and the expedition was called Terra Nova. He had a big team of people. It was a final team of 5 that ended up on foot, walking to basically trying to find the South Pole. They were setting out to be the first to reach the South Pole. They had a few sled dogs. They had some horses, would you believe? But the horses died, the dogs died, and they essentially ended up on foot. They were a very slow expedition because they were doing a lot of research. They were taking rock samples at the base of the Beardmore Glacier. They were naming mountain ranges. They were drawing maps on routes. They were taking weather data. So they were doing a lot of scientific work, a lot of research. Unbeknownst to them, there was a Norwegian team who was sailing down and aiming to beat them to it, led by a guy called Roald Amundsen. Amundsen team just used sled dogs, Huskies. They started with 53 dogs and they finished with 11. They were killing dogs en route. That was part of their plan. They were shooting dogs and feeding dogs to the other dogs, eating dog meat themselves. And there was no science, no research, no filming or photography. They were just racing to the pole to try to claim it for Norway, which is what they did. And Scott turned up a few weeks later to find to his horror and his surprise, the Norwegian flag already there. So they've been beaten to it. And yeah, I think they must have been absolutely gutted, very bitter, very demoralized. All 5 of them turned around, started walking back to the coast, and all 5 perished on that return journey. Very close to finishing it. They covered nearly 1,600 miles out of 1,800 total. And that distance is still the kind of high watermark of human endeavor in Antarctica. No one's ever walked further than that, and no one's ever finished that journey. So that's the challenge.
Hey, again, talking to Ben Saunders, polar explorer, motivational speaker, an endurance athlete, getting ready to set foot in October to make the first return journey to the South Pole on foot, 1,800 miles. Hey, there's somebody as crazy as you out there. You're able to drag somebody along with you on this journey. Is it true your partner is the first guy and only guy to ever walk the entire Great Wall of China?
Yeah, he did it. What's even more interesting is he did it with his girlfriend, and they're now married. So that bodes well for his his abilities as an expert. But yeah, it took them nearly 6 months. It was a huge trip.
Oh, and she's in support of this this next one.
Yes, she is. She's obviously not coming, but she's very much in support.
Yeah, get him out of the house,
Hey, one of the last things here, Ben. I followed you on TED.com. That's how I found you, and obviously some motivational things there. The thing that was so catchy to me is that question you asked, why bother leaving the house? It seems as though so many people, and here on ESPN Radio, 1280 The Ticket, our show, Living the Run, kind of a one-of-a-kind show where we're trying to motivate, encourage, get people out there. You hit a couple things in that talk of people staying paralyzed, staying at home. They're in that watch and wonderment, as we mentioned earlier, and almost just, you even mentioned that word, courage. What's the advice to folks who are struggling to just take that step, one step in front of another? Obviously, they're not going to be maybe going to the level that you are, but just maximizing their own human potential, if you will. What are a couple key things that you found through some of these endeavors?
Wow. I would say one of the things that really surprised me was how willing the kind of heroes and role models I had when I was studying, how willing they were to offer advice and support. So kind of reach out to people, try and find mentors, coaches. Try to pick people's brains as much as you can. If there's something, if there's something you want to achieve and someone else has done it or has done something similar, then try to ask their advice. And in my experience, people tend to love being asked for advice on their field of expertise. So that's a big one. I think also, people will always tell you it's impossible. You'll have no shortage of people telling you why it can't be done, or how it can't be done, or why you're not the right person to do it, or and there'll always be naysayers, and there'll often be people close to you. There'll often be families, friends, loved ones telling you, "Nah, you should play it safe. You're thinking too big here." And yeah, I certainly haven't paid them much heed. And I think, of course, that they're saying that because they care about you. They want you to keep out of harm's way. But I think they're also kind of saying it because they're worried that if you do succeed, then their own timidity is going to be exposed somewhat. So, don't pay too much attention to the people that say it can't be done. In my experience, the word impossible is just someone else's opinion. It's very rarely the fact.
You had a great quote on that. Nobody else has the authority on your potential. I thought fantastic statement for you. Hey, can I just ask you this? You talked about joy. You had a quote in one of your TED Talks that talked about the sheer joy of doing things. And I believe it was an explorer that was climbing Everest that talked a little bit about joy.
Mallory, 1925 or 6. Yeah.
Yes, and we just kind of went through some of this stuff. Joy is not usually the first term that comes to mind when I think about your expeditions. Why are you doing it? Have you come to any conclusion on it?
Well, I still struggle with the why question. I mean, there are so many different factors. That is still a huge part of it. It is deep down. It's still fun. This is a giant camping trip. It's a big adventure. Yes, it's enormously hard work. It's been it's taken years of dedication and sacrifice just to get to this point where we're kind of in the starting blocks. But beyond that, it's the historical significance of it. It's the thrill of being in these environments in genuine wilderness. A whole load of factors.
Now, one thing you talked about, we're talking about joy, and the way you talked about it, I think that a lot of people, it's very common sense, but a lot of people don't think of it that way. Is you don't live to eat, you don't live to make money, you live for joy. You only eat so you can go enjoy the things that you want to enjoy, and you only make money to help you enjoy them. Is that your philosophy? Is that something you've picked up from maybe somebody you've asked along the way?
That came from this guy George Mallory, who died on Everest in the 1920s. But he was often credited with coining the phrase "because it's there" as a sort of motivation. But the actual answer was longer than that, and that was essentially the gist of it. That's what life is for, really, to be enjoyed.
I tell you, Ben, thanks so much for taking a few moments with us. Again, Ben Saunders,
real pleasure.
Polar Explorer. You guys are setting foot in October, looking to go from the coast of Antarctica to the South Pole, 1,800 miles in 4 months. Longest expedition, unsupported polar journey in history. You guys are going to be the first to complete it. We look forward to following you on ScottExpedition.com, YouTube/ScottExpedition. We'll follow you, Ben Saunders. We'll see all those tweets. We'll see all those Facebooks. We hope to get an update from you back when you guys finish in February. Hey, I had to say this, though, Ben. I mean, you guys look to push the envelope. Here we go. Why not do this exploration in maybe, say, May or June in that 24 hours of darkness rather than light? Just make it a little more interesting. Make it a little more interesting, huh?
Well, there's got to be something else to aspire to after this trip. That would be like going to space. I think it'd be like a different planet. But who knows?
Incredible stuff. Again, appreciate you so much, and appreciate you coming on and sharing with our listeners.
Pleasure.
And we'll follow you along the way, man.
Awesome.
Do awesome, onwards and upwards, as we always say.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, guys.
Good stuff.
You're listening to Living the Run on ESPN Radio 1280 The Ticket.
Hey guys, Paul Tarek from Living the Run here. As a former Olympian, there is only one place myself and fellow athletes go when it comes to chiropractic care on the Central Coast. With 4 chiropractors in the clinic, Slow Wellness Center is the largest, most comprehensive group of docs in San Luis Obispo County. I began seeing Dr. Rex Stevens back in 2005 for spinal adjustments to help maximize my performance, minimize my injury, and allow me to compete at my best. When the difference between a win and a loss can be just a fraction of an inch, perfect alignment in all joints is essential. One of the great things about the team at Slow Wellness is no matter where I had an issue, whether it was my spine, my foot, knee, wrist, or shoulder, they were always able to help. This team, made up of Dr. Rex and Molly Stevens, Dr. Sachs, and Dr. Bandolo, is sure to help you reach your health and fitness goals too. If it's chiropractic care you need, go where I go, Slow Wellness Center. Check them out at slowwellness.com or call 543-8688.
Folks, when it comes to the health of my teeth,
We're back with Living the Run.
Hey guys, Paul Tarek from Living the Run here. As a former Olympian, there is only one place myself and fellow athletes go when it comes to chiropractic care on the Central Coast. With 4 chiropractors in the clinic, Slow Wellness Center is the largest, most comprehensive group of docs in San Luis Obispo County. I began seeing Dr. Rex Stevens back in 2005 for spinal adjustments to help maximize my performance, minimize my injury, and allow me to
Paul Tarek, it happened.
You almost made it. I was so proud of you.
We almost made it. Oh, gosh. If you're wondering what that was all about, that would be a few still rookies. We've been doing this for a couple years, and that was still rookie material right there.
That was high school. That was so high school, Rex. I can't believe you did
Taken away from a great interview, Ben Saunders. Good stuff. Sitting in in studio now. Rex Stevens, Olympian Paul Tarek, Melissa Gergel. You kind of got this sense, it's kind of a goofy thing. The interview is a little longer. We don't usually do those tape-delayed interviews, but you got a kind of a longer extent or experience of what it's like to be with Paul Tarek during the breaks. During the breaks is when things really get a little crazy here on this show, and the topics, they rarely revolve around health and fitness. Like Living the Run is really trying to get after.
Yeah, it was a little surprising, but it was good.
But it's Paul Tarek.
We talked everything. We talked some health and fitness. We talked extracurricular activities, and we talked power generation. We talk everything here on Living the Run.
Oh gosh. Hey, so we hit a couple of things. We haven't talked about it yet, but we always talk about this. What we did today, what we did to get our blood to boil. Paul, what'd you do to get your blood to boil today?
I surfed. It's probably better, one of the better days out there, at least in the last few months, and it was about waist high out in Morro Bay. It was great shape and no wind on it, so we went surfing. And every night for the last week, I've incorporated my 2.5-year-old. Way off on that. 2.5-year-old, and I figure he gets bigger by the day.
You're not getting sleep, Paul.
I know.
You need sleep. Your memories.
I know, it's terrible. So I've incorporated him into a workout where I let him. He wants to ride the horsey. I do push-ups, and I try to get a bunch of sets in, and then we do some ab work together too. And he's getting stronger. He's getting real strong.
All right, what'd you do to get your blood to boil today, Melissa?
I ran 8 120s.
8 120s. Why a 120? That's a odder number.
Yeah. So for right now, because it's just kind of getting back into the swing of things as far as my training goes, we do a lot of work on softer surface. So I went over to the turf fields and ran X's. So those are 120s.
Because she's strong enough to not have to run hundreds, but not quite strong enough to run 150s, Rexes.
Exactly.
But that's not even totally meeting in the middle there, is it, Paul? A 125 would meet in the middle.
Oh, we can have a show about OCD. It must be on a 25.
That's what Living the Run is becoming here. Hey, Paul, we do it every week on this show. We talk about tips and takeaways from the show, something that we get. Ben gave us a ton of stuff. He's starting again in October. If you missed any of that interview, check us out. Check the podcast out on Facebook.com/LivingTheRun. We'll put it up for you. You can always go to bensaunders.com to follow these guys along in October. But take a take away from this guy. As we listen to that interview, what we got from him.
What I love that he talked about is we don't do things like eating. We don't do things like working for those things. We do them so that we are able to do the things we enjoy. So I think people need to maybe reprioritize what they're doing, find out what it is that they really enjoy, and then put themselves in a position to do that.
Yeah, my favorite thing he said is no one else has the authority on your potential. That is just such a big thing. One step in front of the other. Hey, quick show for us. We'll bring Melissa back very, very soon. Melissa, thanks for joining Living the Run. Thanks for coming on the show
Thanks
with
for
us.
having me. I had a blast.
Olympian Paul Tarek, Rex Stevens. We got the CJ Silas show next here. And don't forget the Slow Late show tonight from 10 to midnight. Folks, live healthy, live bold, and as always, come live the run.